As the sun cast its first light over Karakura town, Chapt stirred from his restless sleep. He had been haunted by fragmented dreams, visions of shadowy figures and strange symbols. Each night seemed to bring more intensity, leaving him with a lingering sense of unease. The remnants of these dreams weighed heavily on him as he prepared for the day, but a subtle shift in the air hinted at something more than just his own anxieties. Later, as Chapt trained alone, his powers flared unpredictably, the energy crackling around him in a way that felt both exhilarating and alarming. Memories of the battle against the Hollow and his recent experiences seemed to converge, revealing a truth he had only sensed vaguely before. In the dim, cavernous underbelly of Hueco Mundo, Jin Ikamaru moved with a disconcerting grace. The Hollow's hunger was a constant, gnawing presence, an insatiable craving that twisted their existence into an endless pursuit of flesh and souls. Jin, with his ever-present, enigmatic smile, seemed to be the only one who could bring a semblance of relief to their suffering. He walked among them, his presence both unsettling and soothing, as if he held the key to quelling their hunger. With a flick of his wrist, Jin released a steady stream of energy, a tangible essence that shimmered like a mirage before the Hollow's ravenous eyes. They gathered around him, drawn to the comforting warmth of the power that temporarily stilled their cravings. Jin's voice, smooth and almost mocking, whispered assurances to them as they fed on the energy, their grotesque forms momentarily relaxing as the hunger receded. It was a cruel parody of satisfaction, the relief fleeting but enough to buy them a reprieve from their ceaseless need. Despite the brief respite, Jin knew that this was merely a temporary solution. The hunger of the Hollows was an eternal curse, one that no amount of energy could fully eradicate. He watched them with a cold detachment, his smile never faltering as he manipulated their desires and fears with an almost surgical precision. As he walked away from the gathering, Jin's thoughts turned inward. The eternal hunger of the Hollows was a reflection of his own ceaseless ambitions and desires, a hunger that, like theirs, could never truly be sated. Chapt stepped into the dimly lit warehouse, his senses on high alert. The space was cavernous, with metal beams casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. It was here that he was supposed to meet Jinjo, a figure whose name had surfaced in whispered conversations and fragmented rumors. Chad's imposing frame and silent demeanor seemed almost out of place against the backdrop of urban decay, but his resolve was unshakable. As Chad's eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw a man leaning casually against a rusted support pillar. The man's presence was almost disarming. He exuded an air of effortless confidence, a stark contrast to the grim surroundings. His gaze met Chad's with an inscrutable intensity, as if assessing the very core of the man standing before him. "So you're the one they've been talking about," the man said, his voice smooth and measured, carrying a subtle undertone of curiosity. "Chapt, was it? I've heard about your strength." "Impressive." Chad's eyes narrowed slightly, a silent challenge in his stance. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice a low rumble that seemed to reverberate through the space. The man's smile widened, a glint of amusement flickering in his eyes. "Let's just say I'm interested in potential. I have a feeling that you and I might have more in common than you think. How about we talk about what you're truly capable of, and what I might offer you in return?" The offer was laden with implications, and Chapt could sense that this meeting was just the beginning of something far more complex. "The name is Jinjo." Chapt says his own name out being respectful but says, "I don't know who you are or the dreams I having that makes believe that you are connected to." Chapt release his brazo derecha de gigante. Jinjo smiles. "I heard that both arms could transform." Chapt was taken back of what this mystery man just said. How does he know? He transforms his other arm. "It seems your power is not complete just yet. I can help you get stronger, so you'll be back to be on side with your friend Ichigo." Chapt decided to take this strange man deal. Throughout this journey, people who knew Ichigo's name was bad news. Right now, Ichigo isn't here but with the wizards who are helping the survivors of the Espada. He want to take this burden. Something in him believes that he might get stronger. The deal with Jinjo marked a turning point for Chapt, though he couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. Jinzhou's words lingered, heavy with possibilities and unspoken dangers. Despite his reservations, Chad accepted the deal, not for himself, but for the countless lives Ichigo had fought to protect. As their training sessions began, Chad quickly realized that Jinzhou wasn't merely interested in his powers. The man had a way of peeling back layers with his words, drawing out vulnerabilities Chad had long buried. Between grueling exercises that pushed him beyond his limits, Jinzhou would share fragments of his own story, tales of isolation, betrayal, and loss that mirrored Chad's own struggles. "You know," Jinzhou said one evening, his voice echoing softly in the empty warehouse, "when I was your age, I thought strength could fix everything. That if I just became powerful enough, no one could hurt me, or the people I cared about." He leaned against a rusted support beam, his gaze distant. "But power doesn't come without a price. I lost people, Chad. People I swore to protect. And when the dust settled, I realized I was the one who pushed them away." Chad listened in silence, his brazo derecha de gigante glowing faintly as he rested after their latest bout. Jinzhou's words stirred something in him, a resonance that felt almost too close for comfort. Over time, Jinzhou's story began to intertwine with Chad's own memories. He thought of the lonely nights spent wrestling with the weight of his powers, the sacrifices he'd made to stand by Ichigo's side. And for the first time, he questioned whether his unyielding resolve might lead him down a similar path, a path of loneliness and regret. One night, after a particularly intense training session, Jinzhou decided it was time for a deeper test. They stood atop an abandoned building, the city sprawling beneath them like a sea of shadows. Jinzhou's expression was unreadable as he handed Chad a worn pendant. "This belonged to someone I cared about," Jinzhou said, his tone unusually somber. "She believed in me even when I stopped believing in myself. I want you to hold on to it, for now." Chad stared at the pendant, its surface glinting faintly in the moonlight. "Why give this to me?" he asked. Jinzhou's smile returned, though it was tinged with something softer, almost vulnerable. "Because I see a lot of her in you, and I need to know that you won't make the same mistakes I did." As their bond deepened, Chad began to notice subtle changes in Jinzhou. The man's sharp edges seemed to soften, his ruthless pragmatism giving way to moments of genuine care. Yet, beneath the surface, Chad sensed an internal struggle, a battle between the man Jinzhou had been and the man he was trying to become. The breaking point came during a mission that brought them face to face with a powerful hollow. The creature was unlike anything Chad had encountered, its presence suffocating and its power overwhelming. As the fight raged on, Chad found himself pushed to the brink, his powers flaring chaotically. Jinzhou stepped in, his own energy clashing with the hollows in a blinding explosion. "Chad," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus. Remember who you're fighting for." Chad clenched his fists, the pendant around his neck serving as a grounding weight. With a roar, he unleashed his full power, his brazo derecha de gigante and brazo izquierda del diablo working in perfect harmony. The hollow faltered, and with a final strike, Chad brought it down. As the dust settled, Chad turned to Jinzhou, only to see the man kneeling, blood staining his side. "Guess I'm not as invincible as I thought," Jinzhou said with a weak chuckle. Chad rushed to his side, panic flickering in his usually stoic eyes. "Why did you do that?" he demanded. Jinzhou's smile was faint but genuine. "Because you're the future, Chad. And maybe you'll do what I couldn't." In his final moments, Jinzhou pressed the pendant back into Chad's hand. "Don't let the past define you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Be better than me." As Jinzhou's life faded, Chad felt a profound shift within himself. The man who had trained him, who had pushed him to his limits, had also shown him the importance of staying true to his values. Jinzhou's sacrifice became a turning point for Chad, a reminder of what he was fighting for, and what he would never allow himself to become. As Chad continued his journey under Jinzhou's guidance, the next step involved meeting the other Fullbringers, those who shared a similar connection to the spiritual world. Jinzhou led Chad to an underground hideout, a vast, dimly lit chamber buzzing with residual spiritual energy. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mix of curiosity and wariness as Chad stood before the group. "These are the others," Jinzhou said, gesturing to the gathered Fullbringers. "Each of them has a unique power, like you, and each has faced their own battles to control it." Chad's gaze swept across the group, noting their differing demeanors, some confident, others guarded. He introduced himself with his usual brevity, though his towering frame and serious expression spoke volumes. The first to approach him was Ruruka, her pink hair and playful tone a sharp contrast to her sharp words. "So, this is the guy you've been training? Doesn't look like much," she teased, though her gaze betrayed her curiosity. "Give him a chance," said Jackie, her serious tone cutting through Ruruka's jab. "If Jinzhou's brought him here, he's worth something." Over the following days, Chad trained alongside the group, learning more about their abilities and pushing his own limits. Each Fullbringer challenged him in their own way, forcing him to adapt and grow. Ruruka's spatial manipulation tested his precision, Jackie's dirty boots demanded he match her relentless power, and Yukio's digital constructs forced him to think creatively under pressure. One fateful training session brought Chad to the brink. Jinzhou, observing from the sidelines, had orchestrated a simulation where the Fullbringers worked together to overwhelm him. Their coordinated attacks pushed Chad's abilities to their limit, his Brazo Derecha de Gigante and Brazo Izquierda del Diablo struggling to keep up. "Come on, Chad," Jinzhou shouted, his voice echoing in the cavern. "You've got more in you. You just don't know it yet." Chad's arms glowed brightly as he deflected blows and retaliated with explosive strikes, but he felt himself faltering under the relentless onslaught. The combined pressure of his opponents and the weight of his own doubts bore down on him, threatening to crush his resolve. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. One of his grandfather, who had taught him so much about life, strength, and compassion. He could almost hear his voice, clear as day, calling out during one of their playful sparring sessions. "El cuerpo de Dios protegerá a quienes amo." "The body of God will protect those I love." The words resonated deep within Chad's soul, igniting a surge of power unlike anything he had ever felt. His entire body began to glow with an intense, golden light as his skin transformed. Metallic and unyielding, his flesh became a living weapon, every inch of it charged with spiritual energy. As the Fullbringers launched another wave of attacks, Chad didn't falter. Each hit he took was absorbed into his new form, the energy stockpiling within him. His Brazo Derecha de Gigante and Brazo Izquierda del Diablo dissolved into the radiant armor now encompassing his body. The energy built to a breaking point, and with a guttural roar, Chad unleashed it in a devastating blast of erasure, the radius so vast it knocked everyone back. When the dust settled, Chad stood in the center of the arena, his entire body shimmering with latent energy. The transformation had drained him, but he felt stronger, more in tune with his abilities than ever before. Jinzhou approached, a look of astonishment and pride on his face. "So this is your true form," he said. "The body of God. Fitting for someone like you." Chad clenched his fists, the armor glowing faintly as it adjusted to his emotions. "This power isn't just for me," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "It's for everyone I care about, for everyone Ichigo fought to protect. I'll carry this burden, and I'll become strong enough to protect them all." The Fullbringers watched in awe, their initial skepticism replaced with respect. Chad had proven himself, not just as an ally, but as a force to be reckoned with. In the days that followed, Chad worked to master his new form. He learned to control the stockpiling of energy, using it strategically in battle. The Fullbringers became his allies, helping him refine his techniques and uncover the deeper potential of his abilities. But Jinzhou's interest in Chad's newfound power was more than just professional curiosity. Behind his supportive demeanor, he saw Chad as the key to something greater, something that could tip the balance in their favor. And while Chad trusted Jinzhou for now, the echoes of his grandfather's wisdom reminded him to stay vigilant. As Chad prepared for the next phase of his journey, he couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. Well, that was Chapter 5, My Crooks. Next video for this fan FIC. We'll cover on the why I'm writing in the direction.